You know, there's nothing more important to me than using the right fishing line for the Maumee. So let me actually talk to you about the line that I use and when I use it during the different seasons. As I do that, what I'm going to do is break the seasons down into 3 different periods because I use a slightly different setup for each period. Let's initially talk about the early season. During the early season is traditionally in that March time frame, early March usually. What I traditionally end up using is a monofilament. And the reason I run with a monofilament at that time of the year is because the water is extremely cold and icy, and oftentimes what happens is your eyelets start to gunk up with ice. And as that happens, your fishing line, if you are fishing with a braid, will also fill up with ice, which causes, when it gets pretty bad, it'll cause you to cast less because your eyelets are gunked up and your fishing line is gunked up. In addition, it causes slippage and problems when you're using a braid. So at this time of the year, I like to use a pretty tough version of fishing line, somewhere in the 10 to 14 pound range, with a leader that's a little bit lighter than your main line. I like an extra tough version. Then as we transition into the main part of the walleye run, and this is really when most people are out there fishing, I tend to run into a braided line. I've switched over to braided in the last 10 years because I really think it offers a better result in the Maumee. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Braid itself is more abrasion resistant, so it's a tougher line. Also, braid also allows a smaller diameter for the same breaking strength. So I can use either a higher strength or the same strength and get more castability out of it. So I really like that because it allows me to get to places that I never had been able to get to before. In addition, what I do during this time of the year is I either run a fluorocarbon or a monofilament leader. Either one of those are great. The differences between fluorocarbon and monofilament is fluorocarbon is traditionally tougher, stronger. However, it does sink in the water, so it cuts through the water a little bit quicker. Monofilament has a tendency to sink at a much slower rate, and it has more stretchability. I personally traditionally use a monofilament because I want a little bit of stretch, so when I get caught on a rock, I have a little bit of a slack to bounce off from. So that's for the main run. In the braided area, I tend to run somewhere in the 14 pound. However, a lot of guys will run anywhere down to 10 pounds and up to around 20 pounds. I find when I get to the higher end there, I get less castability and I'm casting just like I would with mono. 14 is really that sweet spot, or anywhere in that range, that allows me the castability plus the strength that I need. So then let's actually move on to the late season. And I use, at this time of the year, I'm downgrading. And during the late part of the year, that's traditionally when the white bass are moving in. The male walleye are pretty aggressive and hitting at a fast rate. Traditionally, the Maumee River is fairly slow at that time of the year. And at that time, I really downgrade. So I like to run a monofilament somewhere in the 8 pound range. And I also use a much lighter rod at that time of the year. When I'm doing that, what's important with the leader is that you always have a leader that has less, it is a diameter less than what your main line is. Because if you get stuck on a rock, you want your leader to break off, you don't want the entire rig to break off. So that's what I use during the different times of the year. I know a lot of guys would probably just stick with this standard walleye rod because they're only fishing kind of that core time of the year when the walleye are really in there. So that braided line with the monofilament leader is really a good idea. But let's talk a little bit more about line. When you think about line, what we want to do is you really want to use a high quality product. Now, there's a couple high quality products out there. It doesn't matter which variety you use. There's plenty of them available, but use something high quality. Because what happens if you don't use high quality, then when you're fishing the Maumee, you'll get nicks in your line, and it'll actually break off in the middle of your line instead of at the end. If you use high quality products, you'll always bring your fish in. You'll have it break off at the ends instead of in the middle, which causes havoc when it breaks off in the middle, and you'll really just be more successful in the long run. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to comment below on the video, and I'm happy to answer them for you.